Okay, so welcome everyone to today's IBI Coffee and Talk. So we're delighted to have Priyanka Singh, one of our PhD students here, and she is going to discuss enterprise architecture for transforming public services. I'll hand over to you, Priyanka.
Thank you, Grace, and hello everyone. So today I am going to talk about enterprise architecture for transforming public services. So I know most of you know about my research, but just in case, just to give you a context of my study. So my research basically belongs to the cluster smart cities and regions in IVI, and I'm investigating how citizens' feedback can help councils in better decision making of transforming public services into the smart ones. So here I have just taken a sample of feedback from one of the communities over here in Ireland. And here you can see that they are discussing they have highlighted the issue of unstructured waste management system and what are the issues they are going through on the daily basis. So maybe you can imagine the current situation, current state, something like that. And now we are looking into the transformation of this current service into the something like the smart service that has a better waste management system as compared to this one. So now we need that transformation path. How do we transform that current state into the future states, which will look something like this in the future, where you can see we have the cloud platform where the data can be stored about the different bins which are associated with the sensors. And then you can see how different organizations can access the data from the cloud platform about that bin and can take better decisions with regards to that service. So now this is the transformation. How do we do that transformation from the current public, the traditional service into the smart ones that we want in the future? So when we talk about the digital transformation, I think it is also important to know from which point of view we are discussing it. I mean, is it from the end user perspective, from the customer side? Are we looking into the transformation to improve their experience towards the service, or we are looking into the internal component of the organization? For example, if organization is looking into its internal structure and if it is trying to improve their process with the help of technology. So the main motive is to basically at the end to improve the quality of life for the citizens of the cities. But for doing that, the main key decision makers are the council, and they are trying to engage with local community so that they can make this transformation successful, and at the end they have the better services for them. And we have so now the question is, we need to understand that what are the challenges when we do this kind of transformation? What could be the challenges for the council when anything comes like this, any issues have been raised by the community? So now these are some challenges that I have found in the literature. Like one of the challenges is the lack of structured approaches in response to the digital change. And definitely when it comes to transforming the cities as a response to the digital change, it is very challenging, and it definitely requires a structured approach that can help city authorities in the better transformation. Because in smart cities we have various elements. We have social aspect, we have technological elements, and they govern the success or the failure of the digital transformation. And despite the fact that we have so many opportunities for the digital transformation, municipalities still face challenges in managing the complexity of these smart cities and the data integration. And with the increase of the digitization, the situation has become more complex. Therefore, we need an approach which can provide us a holistic viewpoint where we can see not only at the business side, but also at the IT side, IT initiatives that we can take for transforming these public services. Now, the question is, why are we looking into the enterprise architecture? What does it offer? So enterprise architecture does not provide any specification for implementation of the project. Rather, it provides a city administrator to control and manage the complex processes and the information system. Also, it provides a high level of guidelines for the development of the project so that they can make these transformations successfully by managing these complex processes and considering the implementation of the technologies they are looking for for this transformation. Apart from that, enterprise architecture can also help organizations by providing a set of methods, principles, models, so that it can realize and digitize its organizational structure, information system, process, and the infrastructure as a one platform. So these are some rationale why should we look for the enterprise architecture and the challenges I have highlighted. And now in the upcoming slide over here, I have taken a sub part of my process model that I am working on in my research. And here you can see the different architecture phases that has been adopted from the TOGAF enterprise architecture framework, and the different steps which are involved while we consider any specific phase. So the first phase is about the architecture vision. It basically provides a high level vision of the capabilities and the business value that needs to be delivered. And also here we set to what we want from that project, what the community, what the different service provider, what the stakeholders at the council can focus on, and what are the critical areas to validate the feasibility of the project. So all those things comes under the architecture vision. And now from the business architecture perspective, it describes how organizations need to operate to achieve the business goals and the strategic drivers that we have set at the architecture vision phase. Similarly, if there are any change in the requirement in the future, we also need strategies, we need IT artifacts and the principles so that we can manage those changes which can arrive from either from the community side or from the other stakeholders side, whether it is from the council or from the service provider end. So now here I would just like to highlight some of the key components that are very important for my research and that address the different challenges which I identified in the literature and during my case study. For example, one of the element is about highlighting the risk which could be associated with these projects. For example, one of the practitioner mentioned that they do not have all the resources all the time to meet the community requirement, and they need strategies, they need an activity which can shows that what is possible, what is not possible, and what are the risks if we are taking any actions for delivering the values for the community. And similarly, if I take an example of the business architecture, so defining the service quality. So here we should not only concentrate on the quality factors which are either related with the application, but also looking into the other aspect like the quality of experience that community have towards the service. So that is another factor that have been included over here. And similarly, the requirement change management, where they can manage the requirement based on the priority basis. So this is just one sub-part and example from my main process model. And this is how I am looking into the transformation path when it comes to transforming the public services, which can help council for making this transformation successful. Now, so that's it from my end, and I think, and these are this is the information about the upcoming webinar we have. So it's an exciting topic, the future of digital payments. So if you would like to join us, then please register for this webinar. And there are some other channels through which you can contact us and you can know more about us. So these are some other links. And now I would like to open the floor for the discussion. And if you have any questions or comments for me, and I know some of you are work in the retail domain, and I have heard about customer experience many times. So just curious to know, what do you think about this, and how are you looking into the customer feedback when it comes to improving the services or improving the customer experience? So, and any questions, I'm happy to take. So yeah, that's it from my end. Thank you. Yes, Marco, go ahead.
Thanks, Priyanka. Since this is a coffee talk, of course, I don't want to go too much into the technical details, but to me, I was more wondering of, because more kind of, let's say, philosophical, ethical approach to this. And you were talking, for example, about the customer feedback, about making the kind of a comparison with the digital retail. But to me, when we are talking about smart cities and mainly the involvement of community, they are not just customers, because we could think that the community actually is part of the government itself. So it's not just a customer where you want to sell a product. Actually, should be like somehow the leaders of the process of the change of the service, whatever you want to achieve. And for example, in the open government, let's say, paradigm, there are 5 levels of participation, where the first level, the basic one, you're just informing citizens. The second level, you are asking for their information, for kind of their feedback, but you are asking. On the third level, citizen can start the process of asking you something. On the fourth level, you are kind of discussing together the solution. And on the fifth level, the citizens are deciding what is the solution that should be, so they can vote the solution to be taken. So you see, from the first level to the fifth level, the participation of a citizen is increasing. And again, in an open government approach, if we look really at citizens and the community as the owner somehow of the services, this should be taken into account. So so the question is, if and how you take this into account in your, let's say, in your work. Not interesting, of course. No, of course, the technical part is important, but I want to understand your point of view.
So I would definitely agree that that the community engagement or the community feedback in the smart city context is, I mean, very much different that we see in the normal structure of the organization and the client relationship that they have. Because for the normal organization, they will think about the business side also. They will think about they will think about creating money also. They are more business oriented. But when we talk about the smart cities, they are more service oriented. The structure itself is very complex as compared to retail. Why I asked that question with the retail, because I just wanted to look into the feedback part. You know, they also have the feedback, how they are considering their feedback. So that is what I wanted to ask. But other than that, definitely the community involvement, the way services are designed in the smart city context, they are way more complex. And even for addressing the community feedback, it is not just that they can implement new technology straight away. They need to consider many other factors. They need to see like what are the stakeholders involved, and how can we implement that service. I mean, with one case study, they have that I know that they have 5-year action plan for it, that starting from engaging with citizens offline and then implementing the project within 5 years. So it's a very like a long and complex process within which they want to address the challenges that community is highlighting. And the waste management system is just one example that has emerged from that engagement process and how they can implement it. So that is my take on that side. Yeah.
So are you taking into account also different levels of participation in your model or not?
Yes, so I am at the moment I am looking into that how that initial level of engagement happens. So the one of case study that I have looked into, the engagement level was at the initial stage where they just want to discuss what are the problems they are going through and how they can improve the existing services. But there was no mention of that how that is going to end. I mean, once they have implemented the project, are we again considering their feedback, and in the middle also if there is any engagement with them. So that part was missing. But for me it was important that after having the feedback at the initial level, how are they going to implement the changes, how are this transformation is going to take place. So I am looking from that perspective in my research.
Okay, thanks. I'll leave space
Thanks,
to others.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else wants to share if they have want to discuss anything about enterprise architecture or like yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think that when I saw your research, you said that or what you are doing with the city councils as well. You said that we normally see the feedback from the citizens for creating the services and improvements, but in your case, you're focusing more on once the services are created. How important is really to consider the feedback again from the citizens? It's not just to see the different levels of involvement of the citizens when you are designing the services, if not when you are improving them, for example, by using new technologies or by using even just a simple change in a process or in the context of for example, say the design of the services. So, and also on the other side, we have that the digital transformation. So we know that we are going to implement new technologies, and one important part of what you are doing is that you are saying we are not just going to implement the technologies when we are changing those services. We are looking at how really to include the citizen feedback, starting from the processes, from the people, from the services themselves, so how they are going to change. So that's what I understood, and I think it's very important because it's the main focus of the digital transformation. So we are not going directly to the digital technology implementation. It's not really to see how it can impact the current state of the services in any municipality involving, in this case, the citizens. But I would like maybe to ask you is about the experience that you have with the city council. So how, like, the kind of feedback that you have seen. It's positive feedback, negative feedback, neutral feedback from the current services, and how the people in the municipalities are trying to address that feedback.
Oh, thanks, Viviana, for the question. So firstly, I would like to comment on your first part that you mentioned, that initially I was saying that feedback at the later stage is also important. So in my research, when I conducted the case study, the engagement they are doing, that was at the initial level. So for me, it was important to firstly understand how they are engaging and what kind of feedback they are taking in. So that feedback is the combination of the positive and the negative feedback. They get that information in the terms of number of likes and dislikes about the services, and they provide comments for that particular service. So in my model, I have taken care of that part as well. I mean, once that feedback is in, then I am not only showing the transformation part, path with the help of the steps I am proposing within my process model. But at the end, once the services have been implemented, how can you assess that what you started or what you defined at the architecture vision level, that has been met based on the quality factors we have for individual service. So that assessment is definitely again at the end going to be based on the feedback after the implementation as well, so that we ensure that what we started with the vision, it has been met at the end after the delivery of the services. Does that answer your question, Viviana?
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Viviana. Anybody else has any comments or questions?
Maybe I have a question around kind of the application areas where this could be really very beneficial, like public sector services and in cities, in city councils. It's quite a wide range of different types of services. So I presume we're talking about digitalized services because of digital transformation around this, so with information data around this. But even then, it's quite of kind of, if it's the waste one is probably a relatively standard one. If it's more like a building application, it's probably a little bit more engagement. So the type of services are quite different and a different range of this. And if I understand your work correctly, you're trying to develop a best practice of how to engage, how to receive these feedback from citizens and incorporating them into the service offer and how to configure that service offer. So it's kind of a best practice template blueprint, which could be very beneficial to the councils, to cities, to improve the feedback loop with citizens around this. So do you have an insight on kind of for which application areas, service areas particular, would that be suitable, and for what others might be actually, because of the complexity of service, might be a different type of citizen engagement process? So for which one did you actually design or tailor this citizen engagement feedback process?
So the engagement is happening offline in one of the city council. So once that they have the feedback, they have it for the 6 different service themes. I mean, the feedback is not only for one service, rather they are considering the feedback and getting the feedback for 6 different services. So in my model, what I have done is that they will have an option where they can select that individual service and see what are the feedback that for that particular service and what are the concerns with regards to that service, so that they can take the actions with respect to that service, not only like following the standard activities for all the service. Because for example, the quality factor that we defined for one service, it could be different for the other type of service as well. So in my model, I have one stage where they can click on the particular service for which they want to address the concerns of the community, or they want to address the feedback of the community, and later on they can follow the defined actions and activities that can be taken care of.
Okay, thanks, Priyanka.
Thanks, Marcus.
Priyanka, just a quick question. So in your model, so you said the council is taking offline feedback. So is there any difference between taking feedback offline and, for example, taking it through any online model? And would your model be like behave differently if the council is taking feedback offline or online?
So the main model that I have, it's kind of providing you a blueprint, like how what are the different platforms through which you can take the. So when I saw the online platforms, for example, the CVQ tool is available online, which has been designed by the Cork City Council. So the information they have, it is in the quantitative form. For example, what are the services that community would like to talk more, and what are the issues they talk more. So they are presenting the information in the quantitative way. But so that is what I know based on the projects that are available online. But when it comes to offline engagement, the feedback we have, it is quite detailed, and they are discussing the issues and providing the feedback which is related on based on their daily basis crisis. I mean, the waste management feedback I showed you, it was the more qualitative and the more detailed feedback. So this is how, I mean, I have seen the different types of feedback and how we can approach towards them.
Yeah, thanks. Just one follow-up. But how then they engage with that feedback would not be any different. So, like, the engagement with the feedback would be similar if it's taken online or offline, it's qualitative or quantitative, or would
Yeah, it could be anything, but it depends the program they follow. For example, with Mayo, they do this public participation network regularly, and they define the 5-year action plan for that how that program progress further. But with the online platform, I'm not aware about like how that engagement goes from there onwards. You know, I mean, I know the data, they have the data from the citizen side, but what happens next, that is not like publicly available, and how that engagement goes further.
okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Rehan. Anybody else wants to say something, or maybe just share their viewpoint from their research side?
Probably the last question after we finish
Yeah.
is that I'm wondering if you have found any KPIs from the city regarding to the citizens' feedback. Say, for example, the number of positive, or say, especially the negative part. So especially say the negative feedback from one service to really have an alert or something that they need to really go and improve that. I don't know if, have you ever found something like that?
When I was conducting a case study for e-parking service, then I asked this question to one of the practitioners, like, how do you evaluate the performance of the services? How do you know that service providers are, providing the better services and they are fulfilling the requirement? So practitioner told me that the service provider usually submit the KPIs on the monthly basis, and based on which they decide whether they want to continue the project with the service provider or not. But she mentioned that she had no idea if the community feedback, the citizen feedback has any role in the actual KPIs they have for the service providers. So this, the KPI consideration, this is like something that I'm going to discuss with the practitioners in my current case study as well, while evaluation of my process model. So that is one aspect that I want to include as well. And how are they doing that? And in my recent paper also, I have highlighted this, that the contract they have, the council between the service provider, it is not clear if the feedback has any connection with that KPIs, because it is very important if you want to evaluate the performance of the services. So I have highlighted this the factor in my last paper, that they should consider the KPIs which has been decided, or which has been designed based on the feedback that community is providing, so that they can assess the service performance, not only based on the criteria, standard criteria, but also if it has any linked with the community. So yeah, that is what I think about it.
Thanks, Priyanka.
Thanks, Vivian.